What's good, fight fans? Your Majesty speaking. So, we are about a week out from Lamont Roach and Pitbull CRUZ main eventing the December 6th paper. I don't know if it's pay-per-view or not. I don't think it's pay-per-view. Hopefully, it ain't pay-per-view. But it's a pretty stacked card. You got Stevie Fulton on there, he fighting O'Shaquie Foster. I think you got Ayers Landy Lara on there fighting Janabek. So it is a pretty full event for next weekend or next Saturday. And it's a card that I'm excited for. Just like I was excited for the Ring 4, I'm excited for this Lamont Roach card as well, especially being, a resident of DC and having a hometown guy on the card. But I think it's going to be a tough fight. I think it's going to be a tougher fight than Tank Davis. You say, Your Majesty, why? I believe it's going to be a tougher fight for Lamont Roach because of styles. Styles are everything in boxing. And like they say, styles make fights. So when you get names, a lot of times in boxing, we look at names and we just think that because this person's name is this, or because they got a certain level of clout in the sport, that automatically makes them a tougher fight or whatever the case may be. And that's not always times the case. In this case, I believe Tank is an excellent fighter, but Tank is more of a selective fighter. He picks his spots. A lot of times he doesn't really throw a lot of punches. He's very, very calculated in how he attacks and when he's going to attack and when he's going to counter. And I think that suited the style of Lamont Roach a whole lot better than Pitbull CRUZ's style will suit Lamont Roach. I think because of Pitbull CRUZ's aggressive nature, Lamont Roach is almost like I believe he's gonna force Lamont Roach to fight more than Lamont Roach may want to. And so I'm saying it's a tougher fight, not because Pitbull CRUZ is better, but more so because of Pitbull CRUZ's style. He's going to force you to be a lot more cautious more often. Like with Tank, you got to be cautious, but Tank ain't going to throw 1,000 punches where you could get clipped with something that you don't see. Tank is more so trying to, slip in shots or force you to engage first so he can counter you, or, feint something out there so he can counter you. And Tank is more of a natural counter puncher. Whereas Pitbull CRUZ is going to be throwing shots from all angles. They're going to be wide. They're going to be hard. They're going to be high. They're going to be low. And I think mentally that's going to be tougher for Lamont Roach because he's going to have to be on his P's and Q's a lot more often in that fight. And so for that reason, I believe that it's a tougher fight. Now, seeing how Lamont Roach fights, Lamont Roach is almost like I don't want to sound disrespectful, but a Brian Norman, Errol Spence style fighter. I don't see Lamont Roach, and that's no disrespect, I don't see Lamont Roach being super light on his feet. I see Lamont Roach as a guy who would much rather sit down in the pocket, and I think that's why it worked well with him against Tank, because Tank, and don't get me wrong, he was also defensively responsible in that fight. And so I'm not saying it. I know how it can sound. It can sound like I'm being disrespectful because Brian Norman lost and Errol Spence lost. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about his style. His style is more of a flat-footed, in the pocket, more than likely wants to come forward type of fighter. I don't see Lamont Roach as a Shakur Stevenson or somebody like a Devin Haney who got very, very active feet where they can constantly, stay busy. Not to say that he can't do it, because I also didn't think Rayo Valenzuela was a super slick boxer, but he was able to do it in the Pitbull CRUZ fight. So I'm just talking about what I see from Lamont Roach in the fights that I've already seen. He gives me more of a plodding forward or wanting to stand in the trenches type of fighter in exchange, and I think that could spell disaster for him. Now I hope, and I watched one of his videos on YouTube where he was kind of showing a little bit of his training, and it looks like they're trying to counter Pitbull, which I think could be good. But I think the main recipe for Lamont Roach in this fight would be to push Pitbull CRUZ back. So while I think Lamont Roach is not a great back foot boxer, I do think he got what it takes to put Pitbull CRUZ on his back foot. And I think once you put Pitbull on his back foot, he's not as effective. You know, Pitbull CRUZ is effective when he can kind of press you out and wear you down and throw a bunch of punches. But I believe if you put Pitbull CRUZ on his back foot, where now he kind of got to play defense and he kind of got to be defensive and try to counter punch or whatever the case may be, you at your best, you know, fighting him that way. Now, granted, that's also one of the reasons why I think that it's going to be a tougher fight. And I say that I think Lamont Roach is going to have to dig deeper in this fight than he did in the Tank fight. And once again, that's no disrespect to Tank. Tank is a great fighter. His style is just better for Lamont Roach than Pitbull CRUZ. Now, of course, I'm always going to lean towards the fighter from my city. I'm just loyal to the soil when it's all said and done. But maybe later on during the week, I'll give a breakdown of how I think that fight is going to go. I do believe Lamont Roach can win. I do believe he will win. But I can see it being a super tough fight, and he's going to have to show us something that we never seen before. And I know people who say, well, he did it against Tank. But once again, you've seen the troubles that Tank had with Pitbull CRUZ. It's not because Pitbull CRUZ is a great boxer. It's because his ability to apply pressure. Not only that, Pitbull CRUZ never gets credit for his ability to defend himself. Like, he comes off as just like a brawling Mexican, but a lot of Mexicans don't have great defense. And Pitbull CRUZ and David Benavidez, those guys are able to march forward and still be defensively responsible. Once again, I don't think it's going to be as easy to hit Pitbull CRUZ as Lamont was able to hit Tank. I think it's going to be a rough, tough fight. I do think Lamont from the city, I know what he got. He's going to be able to dig down deep, and he's going to have to be able to dig down deep in order to win this fight. You look at Rolly, right? Everybody that's why I'm saying the styles make fights. You take Rolly. Rolly was having an excellent outcome versus Tank just because of how Tank fights. Tank is not the guy that's just going to go in there and go crazy. Now, if you've seen how Rolly was handling Tank, he was controlling Tank with his jab. Tank was kind of fearful of his power a little bit, so Tank was more reluctant to not, you know, make a mistake. Whereas when Pitbull CRUZ fought Rolly, he didn't give a fuck. And with Rolly, you kind of got to make Rolly fight a fight that he don't want to fight. You look at the Ryan fight, Ryan was pity-patting and trying to throw left hooks and only land left hooks, and you're not going to beat Rolly like that. Once again, Pitbull CRUZ's style, it makes for a rough, tough fight. And even if you good enough to be able to box on the back foot, you still going to have to dip. Perfect example. You look at Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. Shakur Stevenson is probably hands down the least hit boxer in the fight, in the sport, when he don't want to get hit. But because of William Zepeda's volume of punches and his ability to be nonstop, it made Shakur fight a tougher fight than he probably really wanted to. And it made him get hit more than he probably would have wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Of course, he probably could have made it a boring fight and tied up and, you know, did things to kind of suck the air out of the fight. But it's just different when you in a fight against guys like that who are nonstop punching. They never seem to get tired. Once again, Lamont Roach is going to have to dig down deep in this fight. I believe it's going to be a much tougher fight than the Tank fight for Lamont Roach. And I think it's a fight that he very well may lose. You know what I'm saying? But I think he can pull it out. Like I said, later on down the week, I'll do a breakdown on how I believe the fight will go. You can give me your your comments on how you think the fight may go. But let me know, do y'all think this is going to be a tougher fight for Lamont Roach? Do you think it's going to be an easier fight? Do you think Lamont Roach going to lose? You think he's going to win? Let me know in the comments what y'all think, man. I'm going to be glad to, you know, read y'all messages and respond and interact and let you know, if your thoughts even make sense. If mine makes sense, let me know in the comments, man. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you have not hit the notification bell, please do that as well, so that you will be notified when I drop future videos. Also, if you have not followed my social media channels, please do so. They are in front of you. And until next time.